In this video, I'm going to talk about how concrete needs reinforcement, but also I'm going to talk about how reinforcement needs concrete. My name's Tyler Lay, and for Halloween, I want to be Concrete Man. So what is concrete's biggest weakness? Well, it's weak in tension. That's why it cracks. People love to make fun of concrete because of the cracks. But it's the job of the reinforcement to help keep these cracks small. It's the job of the reinforcement that once the concrete cracks, that it starts to take some of the load. Ideally, it keeps these cracks really small, so small we can barely measure them. But what is the reinforcement's biggest weakness? If you just put rebar in the air, it corrodes. Can you believe that? And even in concrete, although concrete does a good job to protect it, eventually it may get in there and start to corrode and fall apart. And that's the biggest weakness of reinforced concrete. Corrosion costs over $300 billion per year in the United States. That's over 3% of the gross domestic product. That's over 3% of all the money made in the United States. Corrosion needs these three things: metal, oxygen, and some kind of electron transfer. And in the air, this corrosion happens, but it's like a slow burn. It's like a slow fire going on. But if you put this in water, everything goes faster and it becomes a huge inferno. And this causes significant corrosion at crazy rates. But rebar and concrete together, they are an amazing team. So how does concrete protect rebar from corrosion? Well, I'm showing the concrete surface. I'm showing a rebar embedded in it at a certain depth. And this is called the cover. This is the depth that the rebar is from the surface of the concrete. And the concrete's like a rock, right? It's gonna do a good job to keep all the outside chemicals from getting to the rebar. But there's another secret. The inside of concrete has a really high pH, a pH between 12 and 13.5. And this forms a protective layer around the steel. This is like one of the secret weapons of concrete. It's like a modern superhero shield of armor forms around the reinforcing steel. And this is called the passive layer. And here's a picture of it inside the concrete. It's like having a sheath around the rebar. And here's a picture of some rebar that's just freshly been broken out of concrete in some areas. You see this white chalky region? That's the passive layer. And in others, you see where it's not present anymore. There's no passive layer there. That means the corrosion can just happen. So how does it form? Well, there are areas on our steel where they're imperfect. Some have a higher electron density, some have a lower electron density. And some of the iron molecules, they actually lose electrons, and then an iron ion swims into the solution. Now remember, the pore solution, the moisture inside the pores of concrete have a very, very high pH. pH is so high, it's like Drano. And that pH means high amounts of hydroxide, or OH minus. They like swarm the iron. They like attack it, and they form an iron hydroxide. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is this passive layer. That's what forms around the rebar, and that's what protects it. So the passive layer is gonna remain intact as long as the pH is greater than 12, or as long as chlorides are not present. In summary, rebar and concrete, great team. Like peanut butter and jelly, like maple syrup on pancakes, like Batman and Robin. The rebar's job, it takes the loads after cracking, and the concrete is gonna protect that steel from corrosion. Hey, take care everybody. I hope you like this video. Give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe, and hey, leave me a comment. Take care, bye.